yours truly and two friends here. This is Liam and my handy dandy editor and friend Omer. And today, instead of doing a typical car review, we're going to do something a little bit different, spice it up. We're going to be doing a podcast. We're going to start like a series of these in the future. And today's first episode is going to be on cars that we would never purchase. And the way this is going to work, we've essentially sorted all these by categories, like trucks, wagon, full-size SUV, full-size sedan, etc. And at the end, we're going to do the top 5 cars that we'd never purchase altogether. And to do a nice randomization of the way we're going to work with this, we have a hat and a bunch of categories. We're going to pick them and then go through them. So stay tuned. Alright, now we're going to pick the first category. So go ahead, Liam.
We got mid-sized SUV.
Alright, so who wants to start with what mid-sized SUV you would never buy?
I have about 2. One being the GMC Envoy or Envoy, however the hell you pronounce it, and then the second one being Chevy Equinox. I believe this is also a mid-size SUV, or it might be crossover.
Yeah.
But those are my 2.
I would never buy the Pontiac Aztec or the Toyota RAV4.
Oh, yeah, add the Aztec and the Rendezvous, Buick Rendezvous to the list.
They're just terrible.
Good old
Trash.
quirky 2000s vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
And the mid-size SUV I would never buy is the modernized station wagon, aka the Ford Flex. Big tyranny on my brand, but they're so hideous, the Ford Flexes.
Ugly.
Yeah,
So I'll pick the next one, I guess.
go ahead.
That's great. Truck.
Oh,
I think we all have pretty much the same
Yeah.
answer.
what's your truck you'd never buy, Omer?
I put the Mazda B3000.
Oh,
No,
that's a good one.
the
That's a good
Mazda
one.
B series trucks. Those
The
were.
Ford Ranger rebranded.
Yeah, and I think me and Liam collectively decided
The Honda Ridgeline.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Probably wouldn't buy them either.
if you consider them a truck at all,
It's the Honda Pilot with a different body on it.
yeah,
It's the same thing.
the good old rugged V6.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
bit more modern than Nissan Frontier, but it's
Oh, I also wouldn't buy a Frontier. Add that one to my list.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All those Japanese trucks.
Yeah.
Tundra though. I'd buy Tundra.
I do like the modern Tundras. I think they're pretty
Yeah.
nice. Old ones, no.
And I like the new Tacomas too. Those are pretty dope.
Yeah, the exteriors are pretty nice. They can
Toyota
be-
maybe, but any other Japanese brand I
Yeah.
wouldn't go.
Yeah.
Wouldn't go for.
All right, we'll go through the next style of vehicle. We got mid-size sedan. And my mid-size sedan that I would never buy is the lovely Saturn Ion from the mid-2000s. They look like
Those are
shit.
I forgot those
ugly.
existed. I have 4
4.
on my list. I got 1 being Volkswagen Passat. I wouldn't buy it though. The new ones look like Audis too, so it's like, what the heck you trying to do?
We got that Volkswagen reliability.
Yeah,
So.
I wouldn't. I don't think I'd ever buy a Volkswagen at all. Unless it was a GTI maybe. And then for 2, I got the Ford Fusion.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of American sedans, so Fusion, I guess it
Kinda
probably just would be
bland.
considered one. Hyundai Sonata I wouldn't buy, and the Kia Optima. Those 2 are pretty popular cars. I wouldn't buy either of those.
I went for the Chevy Impala. I would not buy one. I've heard terrible things about them from anyone who's ever owned one. I've heard terrible things, and it's a Chevy, so.
Yeah. Okay. Pick the next style of vehicle.
We got the Coupe.
Oh, the coupe. I had trouble deciding this one because there's so many different varieties of coupes. So
Yeah,
what did you
same.
guys choose for your coupes?
I had only one. I put the Kia Forte or Forte or
The
however you
Forte,
pronounce it.
yeah, that one too. I didn't put that on my list, but that one's bad. I had the Hyundai Accent.
Ugh.
They're like when they're in a coupe, they just don't look good. I mean, the sedans don't look good either.
That reminds me, the Elantra coupe I wouldn't buy either.
Oh yeah, any Hyundai.
They literally just they slapped on 2 doors there and instead of 4.
They're awkwardly shaped.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
It was an afterthought.
So I'll pick the next one. Minivan. Oh, I got a lot of these.
Go ahead.
So I got a list of 5, or technically there's more. So number 1 being the Volkswagen Routon. I would never buy those. Those are ugly. I would never ever even consider buying one. Number 2 being the new body style Chrysler Pacifica, because it basically looks like they copy and pasted the Chrysler 200 lights and put them onto a minivan,
Yeah.
and I just think it looks hideous in my opinion. And number 3 being the Nissan Quest, because it's like a box, literally a box.
Yeah.
It's like a Honda Element, but a minivan, but a Nissan.
Yeah,
you know?
God.
And then my last 2 being well, 4 would be the Chevy Uplander / all the Mimic models. So there's like the Pontiac.
Pontiac Montana, Saturn Relay,
Yeah.
and Buick.
Whatever.
Like where there's like
Terrazza.
Terrazza,
Yeah.
yes.
Somewhere.
And then my 5th would be the Ford Windstar Freestar. Would never buy either of those. They're just really ugly in my opinion.
Minivans are a hard category. William, what did you choose for your minivan?
I just had the Kia Sedona because
Ugh.
not a big fan of Kias, and Sedona's pretty ugly too.
That too, yeah.
And building off of Omer's list, I had the Nissan Quest as well. The early 2000s one looks like a demented transformer, and then like the later generations, as Omer said, had the boxes of a Honda Element or like an old Hummer, but it just didn't fit a minivan. It was really awkward.
Yeah,
And not a good choice by Nissan. Okay, next category. Wagons.
I didn't.
It's
Oh, I
a
had
hard
one.
for me. I only had one as well.
Okay, go ahead.
I just had the Volkswagen Passat. There's one generation of it specifically. It's like 98 to 06. They're so ugly. They don't look good at all, and they're Volkswagen, so you're gonna be in the shop every other week. It's
Yeah.
not reliable.
I normally don't like wagons. I've been leaning more a little towards them now. You know, I've been a little more fond of them. But one wagon I'd never buy is the BMW 5 Series E60 wagon. I love the sedan. The sedan is beautiful car, one of my favorite BMWs. But the wagon, I don't know why they ruined it so much. The taillight's ugly as like hell, and like it's just very, very hideous wagon in my opinion.
Yeah, and my wagon, I took a bit of an older approach. I went with like a mid-1980s Buick Estate, your typical old school station wagon, and
Big.
Is that one have the wood on it?
Big,
Yeah.
massive car.
the Woody is like, granted, it is an older car, so it doesn't have like the modern prettiness of a newer car, but it's a no-go for me, even though I'm not a big wagon fan in general, but
Alright, next category. We got Roadster. This is a hard one for me.
Yeah, it's hard to choose roadster because I like they're just like nice and simple cars. It's hard to like pick one out. But what did you have for your roadster?
I didn't really have one, but like if I had to think of one, it'd be like any like British Roadster from like the 80s. That was not a good era for British cars in general, especially the Roadsters. You know, the old saying is if you walked outside and there wasn't any oil under your British car, that meant there's no oil in the car. If it was dripping, it was a good thing because that meant their oil was in the car. So yeah, any British like the Sunfire, the MGs, like any of those cars, I wouldn't touch.
For mine, I put the Fiat 124 Abarth, or Abarth, or however the hell you pronounce it. It's very impractical. Like, I own a Roadster, I own a Boxster. It's got like two trunks to make up for the lack of a back seat, so it's a little more practical than your ordinary Roadster, so I like it. But my second choice for a Roadster I never buy is a Pontiac Solstice. And also the Saturn Sky, like those American Roadsters I don't think I'd ever buy.
And building off like the Saturn Sky, like I kind of liked like the old American roadsters. That like my roadster that I never would purchase would be the Fiat 124 Abarth Spider, the rebadged Miata. But see, like most people like wouldn't want to purchase like a Pontiac Solstice, like a Chrysler Crossfire, like an old fashioned like American roadster. I think they're like a little bit cooler, so I'm a bit biased. But the Fiat 124 Spider is, I mean, like I said before, like it's hard to choose a roadster because they're like kind of cool vehicles, but if I did, like with the Chrysler reliability as well, the Fiata isn't not a good choice in my opinion.
Yeah.
So pick next category.
Me?
You too.
Yeah.
Alright, crossovers.
Moo.
Let's see what I got.
For my crossover, I put the Nissan Juke.
That was one.
That was mine as well.
One of the ugliest cars ever made.
Exactly.
the headlights, the tail lights, the whole body, everything about it is ugly. And
Like-
I would just never touch it. Never buy it.
The headlights are like the middle of the hood, and they're like so
They're
elevated.
like this long, and they're not wide. They're long, so they're only like this wide, but they're this long. It doesn't make any sense. It looks terrible.
One thing I'll never understand is why they made a Nismo version of it.
Yeah.
It is Nismo
Yeah.
version, and even then, that's still ugly.
Yeah.
All should turd.
For my crossovers, I thought of Buick Rendezvous and a type of crossover, so I had that on my list. But the other two I have, aside from the Juke, would be the Jaguar F-Pace and the Maserati Levante,
Mm.
because those luxury type crossovers, I wouldn't say are reliable. Especially Jaguar. I don't think I'd ever buy a Jaguar, and I'd never buy a Maserati either. So
Nah, then one last point on the Juke, because that was mine. Like when I was going through my list, like some of the categories I struggled to like pick one out, like the roadsters. But when I was running through these, the crossover, the Nissan
Oh, yeah,
Juke came
me
to
too.
mind so
Yep.
like instantly. It just-
Instantly to mine. It's one of the worst cars ever made.
It's so ugly, but good try, Nissan. But like you said, like with the reliability of the Jaguar,
They
and,
tried
like,
something
Maserati.
different. Tried something different. It didn't work.
Exactly. So, not a good choice. But I mean, if you own one, props to you for having the courage to drive in public. So, moving on to the next category, we have muscle cars.
I didn't have anything for muscle.
Okay.
I think we had the same thing. We had Camaro. Not a Chevy guy.
Yeah.
And I don't think they look very good. And if I was gonna buy any kind of muscle car from Chevy, I definitely wouldn't pick the Camaro over the Corvette. The Corvette's just it's a better car.
Rugged.
What is a Corvette considered a muscle car?
Muscle sport.
Yeah.
Either
It's
one.
muscle car, sports car, it's the same kind of deal.
Yeah. Even though I'm a Ford guy, I still say like Chrysler or Dodge is like the king of muscle cars in my opinion. Maybe because I like old Plymouths and like old like Challengers, like Dodge Daytonas, but we'll get to those in a later video. So we'll give you that for now. But
I don't know if I'd ever buy a Corvette, honestly.
well, it's
It's
like
an old person car.
yeah, true.
That plus they're like extremely low to the ground and like hard to handle and
Yeah.
stuff.
Alright,
Yeah.
so we got full-size sedan next.
Ooh, I
So-
have a reason.
I did the Chrysler Concorde and the Dodge Stratus. They're the same thing, just with different badges. They're so ugly. I had to move one time. I didn't fit in it. My head hit the roof, and the seat was like all the way down and all the way back, and the windshield is like this high, but this long. This terribly proportioned car. Just early 2000s design was.
And the reliability of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
and it's a Chrysler product, so it's not reliable.
I'd add those to my list, but I have the Maserati Ghibli and the Maserati Quattroporte, however the hell you pronounce it.
Unreliable.
Because yeah, they're unreliable and they're Maserati. Like that's way overpriced in my opinion.
That's a good point. For my full-size sedan, hear me out. I put the Volkswagen Phaeton. The Phaeton was at like $100,000 plus oversized Passat in the mid-2000s made by Volkswagen. And you can buy them on Auto Trader for like $12,000 right now. However, say you blow any part with that good old German reliability, you're going to be buying a part that costs more than like the vehicle itself. So yes, you have a Volkswagen Rolls Royce that no one would know is a Rolls Royce because it looks like a Passat, but it's a money pit waiting to happen. So that's why I chose the Phaeton for the full-size sedans. And moving on, I got a few categories left.
I got compact.
Ooh.
So for my compact, let's see what I put. Okay, so I got the Dodge Caliber being
Ugh.
one. I got the Volkswagen Jetta. I'd never buy it. I don't know if I'd buy a Volkswagen. Maybe GTI. I think I said this before.
Yeah.
I wouldn't buy a Toyota Yaris, Toyota Echo, or a Toyota Matrix.
My neighbor had a Matrix.
Yeah, I put the Toyota Yaris. I had a rental car one time that was a Yaris, and I think I could pick it up. I mean, I would feel so unsafe, like in that thing. That it's so tiny and so small, and I think I would die if I got in an accident. Like they're so small, I would never buy one, and they don't look good at all either.
Yeah.
And they feel cheap too. It's just a cheap car because they're new. They're not even 20 grand, so like you can tell like they didn't put a lot of money into making them.
Oh wait, here's another one before you go.
Go ahead.
The Mitsubishi Mirage.
I was gonna say
yeah,
that
yeah.
one. That's not the one I chose, but I was like considering to do like a number 2 car due to its cheap reliability with most small compact cars, as Liam said. But the compact car that I chose was the Scion IQ because, in my opinion, it is an uglified Smart Fortwo. So, and Scion, like,
Smart 42.
yeah, it's like the little tiny smart cars, but it's
It's
like,
that little 2-door ugly thing.
yeah,
Ugly.
it's a little jelly bean or a
Like
lime
jelly
bean.
bean, yeah.
But the IQ, and now that Scion's discontinued, now it'll be harder to even get, like, it'll be more expensive to find parts for it. So the IQ is just not a good choice for a compact car, in my opinion. But with the Mirage and the Yaris and all other aforementioned vehicles. So we will move along to the next category, which is, if I could pick one out, sport cars.
For mine, I went for the BRZ FRS Toyota 86, that whole thing. It's a Toyota body with a Subaru motor, which is the exact opposite of what I would want. I'd want the reliability of the Toyota with the looks of a Subaru. I think that would be way better. And they're just so underpowered. They make like no horsepower, and they're slow.
150 or something.
Yeah, it's like makes what my Civic makes, like so slow. And I mean they look okay, but they're nothing special in my opinion.
For my sports cars, the only one I could think of was Maserati Gran Turismo. Again, with me hating Maseratis, but that's the only I would consider that, but I don't think I would buy one. Like if I had the money to buy one, I'd probably buy like a nice BMW or something like that. Yeah.
And for my sports car, this is like weird because like this car kind of falls like a supercar / a sports car. But the sports car I chose was a BMW i8 because for an extremely expensive car, the i8s are like very like, you know, they're flashy, they're nice looking, but I wouldn't say they was like as gorgeous looking as like a different supercar or sport car. But the thing that kills me with the BMW i8, especially the hybrid ones, is the exhaust or the electronic or speaker exhaust note. Like
It plays, but so it sounds like a nice car. But it's not
Aren't
that
they all
car.
hybrid?
yeah.
Yeah,
So
they're all hybrids, and like
when you're making a car, don't make it something that it's not. Like imagine Tesla putting a Dodge Challenger sound system on the Model X.
yeah,
like
maybe
how
it
would
sound
that
like
sound?
a V8 in your Toyota in your electric car there.
That killed the i8 for me. It just why BMW? Why did you do that to such a nice car? Like it's like an embarrassing trait, but nonetheless, that would be my sports car if you could consider it that I would never purchase. And you can choose the next category, Liam.
Alright, we got our supercar category. So this one was kind of a hard one for me, but what I ended up going with was the Ferrari 812. It's their like front engine coupe, and I think since Ferrari started making mid engine cars, they haven't made a nice front engine coupe. Like some of like their original cars that were front engine coupes are beautiful cars, timeless designs, but the new Ferraris, they make much better mid-engine cars than front-engine coupes.
Definitely.
So yeah, or that, and the Ferrari FF, the like weird like 4-seater coupe thing they tried to do with a back seat, and it kind of looks like a wagon thing in the back, hatchback thing, but it doesn't look good at all. Those were the two I went with.
Yeah, I didn't have anything for supercars. I couldn't think of anything.
It's so hard to choose a supercar because like who wouldn't want a supercar?
Exactly.
And doing this, I'm gonna get a lot of hate for putting this car, but for the supercar that I would never buy is the Porsche 959. Like this is an extremely renowned car that people would kill to own. However, the extremely wide side skirts and stuff, it's not a gorgeous looking car to me. Like, I mean, sure the performance is like amazing and stuff, but it's just not an appealing car for that amount of money.
It's an 80s design that, with 80s designs, you either have an amazing design or you have something that looks like it came out of the 80s. And that's what that car is. It just doesn't look good.
Yeah. So, don't kill me for putting that, but I wouldn't buy a 959. Go ahead, Omer.
Alright, this is the last category. So this is random.
Oh yeah, this is like a freebie, like just random cars you just you wouldn't want to buy as like an extra. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
So generally, I just put any Maserati, any Range Rover. I'd say the majority of Volkswagens. Probably, I wouldn't buy any like American sedans. I'd consider a Chevy Malibu, but that's about the only American sedan I'd ever consider. And aside from Tesla, of course. But yeah, that's off the top of my head.
I put the Scion XB, that weird like Nissan Cube, that Nissan Cube too. They're like the weird like boxy things that don't look good at all. They look like a shoebox. Like it looks terrible. It looks like a foot almost. Like it just doesn't look good to me. And it's a Scion. I mean, they're a cheap Toyota. Toyota's
Yeah.
already cheap. How much cheaper can you get? That's what Scion was. And I just wouldn't buy it.
For my rent, I had two. I believe you said Toyota Echo earlier.
Yeah.
I can't. The Toyota Echo was such an ugly car, and on a very smaller, larger scale, I put the Jeep Renegade. The Renegade is.
That's the one with like the X in the
Yeah,
taillights,
yeah.
right?
The X's in the rear taillights are disgusting. It looks like a Tootsie Roll, and it's not a Jeep. Like a Jeep's supposed to be like this firm, like rugged vehicle. The Renegade
And those are like front wheel drive.
Yeah.
They're not 4-wheel drive. It's like who are you? They're 4 cylinders out of a Fiat. Who are you kidding?
Yeah. It takes all the like the power out of the Jeep. It's like
Everything that's a Jeep is supposed to be is not in the
exactly.
Renegade.
So
Yeah, I'd just say most Jeeps nowadays are just more over like on the crossover
yeah.
SUV side than the traditional.
Besides like the Wrangler.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say.
They're
Beside the
stepping away.
traditional-
They're not what the Jeep used to be. It used to be about utility and like
Simplicity, is bare
simplicity,
bones.
bare bones, and now they're like the Grand Cherokee is like a $50,000
Yeah.
SUV with all these options and stuff.
family
which is
car.
not what a Jeep is.
Yeah.
Like in my mind.
Yeah. I'm glad they still have the Wrangler though, so they could have something
They have
that
to
still
have
lives up to
that.
their brand.
It's a staple of Jeep.
Exactly.
But
Like,
okay.
I see Jeeps now, like they look. I think like not the Compass. It was one of them. Like maybe I think it was just the Cherokee, not the Grand Cherokee. It's just the Cherokee now. Like it's like looks kind of like a Kia, and like the headlights are like so tiny, and like they're just I don't like them at all.
Yeah.
And they're making like the curvy Jeeps, like or like the old boxy Jeeps, like curvy now. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
they're over modernizing what Jeep is supposed to be. So that's a bit rough. But keep making the Wrangler.
Yeah.
And then to finish off the video, we are going to do the top 5 cars we would never purchase altogether. So for my number 5, I chose like an early 1990s Dodge Grand Caravan Woody, or an old Plymouth version of these. These, when you see these on the road, there's no mistaking what these are, and you kind of give that cringing look when they pass by, asking if it's going to make it up to their destination in time. So I'm not a fan of the old Woodies. Granted, they do have character. I'll give them that. Their old quirkiness has character, but I would never, ever want to be seen driving one. So that was my number 5.
For my number 5, I guess I'd say Nissan Juke. Cause like that's like first thing came to mind, Nissan Juke. Like ugliest car I've ever seen. Like I don't know what Nissan's doing now. I would never ever. Maybe I'd drive a Nismo if I was ever given the chance, but I would never ever consider even owning one.
My number 5 was the Nissan Cube. It's just so ugly and small and useless. And like the round window thing, like there's no pillar. It's just a window that wraps around. It's just so ugly.
But you still can't see out of it.
Yeah, you can't see out of it because there's still a pillar behind it. But on the outside, it's just one window. It's just useless, dumb design. It doesn't look good.
Yeah. So moving to the number 4 top 5 cars we never own, I chose the BMW i3. This is the weirdest looking electric car you can buy. It is a Nissan Leaf on extreme drugs, and it's so much more. It's got the luxury of a Beamer, the body of like a upgraded Nissan Leaf with just really bizarre looking wheels and color schemes, and it costs like $45,000. I mean, granted, you're not going to pay anything for gas, but it's just such a weird vehicle, and it doesn't have that pristine opulence of a Beamer, so that's why I chose that for my number 4 vehicle.
For my number 4, I'm trying to see what the name of it. There was this one Kia that looked like absolutely ridiculous. Like it looks like older Bentleys. Forgot the name of it. I really can't think of the name of it. The hell was the name? Was it a Monty? I think it was a Monty. Yeah, it was a Monty. So I would never buy a Kia Monty because it's ugly in my opinion. Like that Kia and I think Jaguar kind of looked like that. The older Jaguars had the same like front end like that, and like the older Bentleys that kind of had a similar look to them, but they made it like a little more aesthetic than these like cheaper looking like Kia. But like even generally, if a Korean car company tries to make a luxury car, 90% of the time they fail. Except Genesis, you know, they're moving up there a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
But I don't think I'd buy one.
Related to that, my number 4 was any Kia or Honda. Wouldn't touch. They're made by the same company. If you didn't know that, I think that's the point. But they're like the same thing underneath. They use like the same parts. They're interchangeable, and they're just everyone I've ever worked on is unreliable. So many things are wrong with them. They don't last. They're cheap. And that's why people buy them. They're cheap, but they're just not good quality
It falls
cars.
apart halfway through your ownership.
Yeah.
So you buy a new one.
Yeah. They're cheap, replaceable cars, and that's what they are, but I would never buy one.
For my number 3, I did a mid-1990s Suzuki X90 with like the drop top back. These things were some of the most hideous cars ever made. They had that typical like plasticky 1990s Suzuki material. They're awkward. Like they were like a cheap beach buggy type of thing. It's just so bizarre and outlandish and just nauseating to look at. So I would never want to own a Suzuki X90.
My third, I guess I would say, this is back to the whole Korean luxury cars or pieces of shit thing. I would never buy a Hyundai Equus or however you pronounce it. I saw one when I first saw one. I was like, "What the hell is that thing?" Like they're like trying to be kind of like on the German side of cars, but they're not. It's like awkwardly like shaped, I guess, kind of. I don't think I'd ever buy one of those. I would never own one because I could easily use that money to buy one of those to buy something even better.
Exactly.
So my number 3 would be a second gen Dodge truck, especially if it had an automatic in it. They are notorious for failing. The second gen Ram is like 94 to like 2002 range, and I'd consider it maybe if it was a Cummins diesel, because it's not a Chrysler product.
Those will go a long while.
And if it had a manual transmission behind it, because they'll last way longer than the automatics. I've known plenty of people with those generations Dodge, and the transmissions are just junk. They're terrible. They blow all the time, and I would never own one. I think the most unreliable thing.
They had rust issues too, don't
Oh,
they?
they rust all the time. The rockers, the beds, the doors, they all rust out. Like every single one you ever see is rusted out. There's no like rust-free ones anymore. They're terrible.
Yeah, good old Dodges. Fun. For my number 2, this was one of Liam's cars as well, the Nissan Cube. Just to touch on what he just said, the empty pillar that you still can't see out of in the inside, the rippled ceiling, the shag carpeting on the center console. Like, the Honda Element was ugly. The Scion XB was ugly.
Yep.
The Nissan Cube was atrocious.
They're box cars.
Terrible.
They were circular boxes.
Or shoe boxes that
Boxes
look
with
better.
wheels.
Yeah. Embarrassing cars to own.
For my number 2, I guess I'd say, would be the Scion TC.
Ooh.
They're nice looking cars. Don't get me wrong. Like I look at one and be like, oh, okay, that's pretty nice. But once you if you get into an accident with them, you're done for. Like, those things are like paper. Like you just like that. You're just done. So yeah, I'd never buy one of those.
So my number 2 was the Pontiac Aztec. The tent thing that that GM tried to make.
You want a cheap tent?
They all came with like tents in the back, if you didn't know that, and they all were like set up so you could like sleep in them. Like the rear seats folded down flat, and I rode in one once, and it was just the weirdest experience. All the angles were weird. There was no headroom in the back seat because it had that weird hatch thing. I was like 12 and I still didn't fit in it. It was just one of the oddest cars ever, and it felt really cheap as well. And overall, the early 2000s were not a great time to buy a GM product, and the Pontiac Aztek is ranked at the bottom, at least for me.
And if we're moving to the cars, the car that we would never ever buy, the number one, the Chrysler PT Cruiser.
I put the same thing.
These things were so ugly. They came in Woodies too, and the first year they came out, they actually sold a lot. But afterwards, they sold like nothing for the previous years. And there's a reason why Doug DeMuro crushed one of these with a Hummer H1. They were hideous cars. They were aimed to suit hipsters and old people. And
they didn't have a target market.
Yeah,
No.
I didn't like the fact that I should have added this to my list, but the fact that they tried to make it into a convertible.
Oh, that too.
Yeah, so there's
convertible
that, and then
ones.
there's like the Nissan Murano Cross Cabriolet that they tried to do. Like, anytime you try to make like a two-door SUV, like even just not even like convertible, just two-door SUV, like that's gonna flop. Like you're not gonna get any sales by that, so you shouldn't try.
It was a car shaped like a coffin with Chrysler reliability. So
Yeah.
lose altogether.
So my number one is the Toyota Prius. Car guys love to hate on this car, but they're terrible. They're so ugly in my opinion. Any generation of them. I tried to move one time and I couldn't figure out how the gear shift worked. It's like this thing, and you gotta like move it to the right and like or the left and like down to find the drive, and then like you aren't sure if you started it because it's silent and you can't tell. And I would just never buy one. I would never go near one.
I was gonna include it on my list too, but I will 100% back him up in saying
Yeah,
I would never
Prius
want
is
one
just
either.
Terrible car.
I was thinking about the same thing for like the first generation and some of the second generation too. The first generation was a sedan actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, sedan, like that's
original.
that's like it looks like kind of like a
The Echo.
yeah no it looks like some sort of Nissan I think actually
And
like
they
the
made a
Echo.
hatch too.
Yeah, and then it was a Nissan I think like the Versa sedan that kind of looks similar to that, and then like the second generation the hatchback.
Yeah.
I didn't like they're not as ugly as people make it out to be in my opinion, but I just think just the fact that the rear window has like a blind spot, like a huge blind
Yeah.
spot, because there's like the hatch and then there's like the window
There's a bar.
underneath, and then there's the bar. That's
You
what I'm talking
can't
about.
see anything.
Yeah.
Dude.
So like that's like terrible, and plus since they're like older, they don't have like rear view cameras to make up for it, so you have to like, look through, and it's
Guess where you're going. All around bad. Wouldn't buy one.
No chance. And with that, that is the conclusion of episode 1 of our trio of podcasts. Stay tuned, there's going to be a lot more videos in store. We have some good ideas coming for you. We hope you enjoyed watching. If you hate cars too, feel free to speak your truth and which ones you would never buy either. And thank you for watching. Peace.